Within this tutorial, we're going to go ahead and talk about how we can use Verse to set a mesh inside of a custom blueprint that we've created. In this case, we're going to go ahead and take Manny here and just change him into a cube by walking over this trigger. Now, something to understand is that this project was created fresh after the release of 26.00, which is really important because if you're using a version prior to that, you're going to have to do something within the INI files, which we will not be covering here inside of this video. I'll go ahead and leave an image at the very end of this tutorial that explains what you need to do, but we will not be covering that actual process. To begin this, let's go ahead and create our blueprint that we're going to be using. So let's go ahead and open up the content drawer down here. I'm going to go ahead and right click inside of my folder, come up here to Blueprint Class. In this case, we're going to go ahead and use this, our building static mesh. Let's go ahead and click on that little button right there. Go ahead and give it a name. In this case, I'm just going to call it BP Mesh Set. Then we'll go ahead and open up this blueprint. Up here in the top left-hand corner where we have our components, we're going to make sure that we've actually got this top component selected. So this self is what we're looking for. With that one selected, over here on the right-hand side, we're going to make sure we are in the mesh section, and underneath our static mesh, we're going to set the mesh that we want it to be before we make the swap. In this case, I just want it to be Manny. So I'm going to grab that one. Perfect. Now all we have to do is go ahead and compile and save up here in the top left-hand corner. And then close this one down because we're not going to need it anymore. The next really important thing that you need to understand is that within your project, you need to have a folder that's going to house all of the static meshes that you're going to be setting. So we're going to change Manny into this cube. We need to know where this specific cube is at. So next, let's go ahead and set up the Verse file so that it's looking for this specific folder so that we can actually swap Manny out for anything inside of it. So to create that Verse file, let's go up to the Verse Explorer, and I'm just going to right click on the project root and go ahead and add a new Verse file. And we'll go ahead and just call this Mesh Set Device. And then go ahead and click the Create button down here. Go ahead and double click on it to open it up. Now to add this actual meshes folder to our Verse device, we need to go ahead and add in one little line. So here on line 5, I'm going to go ahead and type in the word using and then add in meshes. Once you've got that added in, make sure that you save everything. So I'm going to go ahead and save over here inside of Visual Studio, and over here inside of UEFN, we want to go ahead and make sure that we build the Verse code. So now what we should see is that down here inside of our assets digest, we should now have a meshes, and we can see that we have our cube down inside of here, which is this cube right here. Now, if you're wondering what these other ones are, that's just because I've got a filter on and you can't see them. Just making it easy to see. Now from here, we're going to go ahead and grab that creative device that we've actually created. I'm going to go ahead and drag this into our scene. Next, let's go ahead and add in the trigger and the blueprint that we're going to be using here inside of this code. So over here, let's go ahead and go into our blueprints, and this is the one that we created, our BP mesh set. So click and drag Manny in here, and we'll go into the devices. We'll go ahead and grab a trigger, and we'll set it right there. Next, let's go ahead and set up our device so that it can actually use these two actors here inside of our world. And to do that, we'll go ahead and start right here on line 11. Let's give ourselves a little bit of room, and we'll go ahead and add in these editables. So at editable, and I want to make sure that I can use that trigger device, so we'll just call it my trigger, and we'll put it in a colon, and then this is a trigger device, and we'll make sure that it equals a trigger device. And I'm going to go ahead and just copy this, paste it, and add in a couple of curly brackets at the end of it. Now we want to make sure that we actually have access to our custom blueprint that we made, Manny, over here. So let's go ahead and add in another editable. I'm just going to copy this like so, paste that in there, and give ourselves a little bit more room. And this is our custom blueprint. And this is a creative prop, and we'll make sure that it is equal to a creative prop. So go ahead and just paste that in again and add in a couple of curly braces at the end of it. So let's go ahead and make sure that we save everything here inside of the code. So Control S, and then we'll come back over here and inside of UEFN and go ahead and build everything. So I'll Control Shift and hit B, and we should now have our little editables right here. Perfect. So let's go ahead and hook these up. So the trigger, let's go ahead and use the picker. Go ahead and choose the trigger, and then the custom prop, we'll go ahead and use the picker, and we'll go ahead and choose Manny right here. So cool, now that we have everything set up inside of the world, and most of it set up inside of Verse, let's go ahead and write in the code that is going to allow us to actually swap Manny out for that cube. Now we're not going to need line 17 through 19, so we'll just select that and delete it. And what we need to do is set up this trigger right here to be heard by this Verse device. So what we're going to do is go ahead and copy this My Triggered section right here. So we'll copy that, and down below, and paste that in. Now we need to get the function triggered from this one right here. And essentially what we're doing is we're going to go ahead and event bind, but we're going to do this inside of Verse. So we need this triggered section right here. So to do that, I'm going to hold down Control and I'm going to click on Triggered Device. That'll open up the Fortinet digest. So we're here inside of our trigger device. And what we're looking for specifically is this triggered event. So let's go ahead and just double click on that, copy it. Let's go back to our mesh set device. And I'm going to put in a period, which says, hey, we're going to use one of those functions, and then just paste in that function. Next, we need to go ahead and listen to it. So if we go back to the digest, we can see that, hey, this is specifically listenable. So to do that, inside of here, we're going to type in the word subscribe. Next, we need to add in a couple of brackets. And inside of that brackets, we're going to go ahead and name the function that we're about to write. In this case, we're just going to call it SetMesh. And with all that set up, let's go ahead and now actually write this SetMesh function. So I'm just going to copy that, and let's give ourselves a couple of lines. I'm going to go ahead and paste that in. Now I do need to move it over to the left a little bit, so I'm going to hold Shift and hit Tab so it's directly underneath that on begin. This is a function, so we're going to go ahead and add in the brackets and a colon, and then after that we're going to type in void and then equals, because we're not going to be returning anything. And here on this final line is where we're actually going to take our custom blueprint, our Manny here. We're going to go ahead and access it and then say, hey, replace Manny with the actual cube. So here in SetMesh, I want to make sure that I'm indented a little bit to keep us within the scope of this specific function. So here, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and copy our custom BP, because this is the one that we're going to be affecting. So copy that, come down here and paste it in. And then we're going to put in a period because we're going to access the function inside of our specific custom prop. And it is SetMesh, capital S, capital M. And then here we're going to add in some parentheses. And inside the parentheses, we want to go ahead and use the name of whichever one of the static meshes that we're going to be using. In this case, we're going to go ahead and use the S_cube. So we'll go ahead and just type that in as the way it's written inside of the engine. Now the last piece that we have is one little error right here, and that's because right here, we're not actually passing in the agent or whatever's actually triggering the trigger that we're working with right here. So to deal with that, we're going to go ahead and just type in the word agent, capital A, and then we'll add in a colon, and we'll go ahead and use a question mark agent, because it could be an agent, but it could be a car, and it could be something else that actually rolls over this to actually activate that trigger. So there you have it. Let's go ahead and save everything that we've created here inside of Visual Studio. And we'll go back over here to UEFN and go ahead and build the verse code. So Control-Shift-B is the hotkey. And then we'll go ahead and launch and play the session to test everything out. All right, so let's go ahead and walk over the trigger. And sure enough, it goes ahead and switches Manny into the cube. So there you have it. Now you know how to go ahead and use the SetMesh function inside of the creative prop to go ahead and set a mesh from what it was originally into something else. And of course, here are the instructions that you'll need to use if your project was created prior to 26.00 and you want to go ahead and use this function in your project now. So there you have it. If you have any other questions, comments, concerns, or confusion you need cleared up so that you can continue to be a creator, go ahead and just leave a comment down below. We'll get back to you when we can. And of course, don't forget to be clever-like and subscribe.